Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. Unshaved, unbathed, unedited, and quite a bit scripted today. We're going to be talking about some new articles that have come out about Elizabeth Warren that have substantially furthered my predictions of earlier that the establishment is swinging behind Elizabeth Warren. Start out here with this article. LA Progressive. If Black Agenda Report managing editor Bruce Dixon had not passed away in June, he would be having a field day with Monday's New York Times article describing Senator Elizabeth Warren's assiduous courting of bigwig Democrats. And we've talked about that article already. In supposed contrast to Bernie Sanders' call for a mass movement, a political revolution in this country. The Times makes a convincing case that Warren, and we've already talked about the Monmouth poll that shows her in a three-way tie with Sanders and Joe Biden, is craftily courting the superdelegates that will cast decisive votes on the second ballot of a brokered convention. Bruce would call it the barking of rival sheepdogs, both of whom are committed to keeping left-leaning voters safely within the Democrat herd. That point, the sheepdog point, is the most devastating criticism you can make against anyone who vows not to disrupt the establishment in the Democratic Party. If the Democratic contest were really about determining which candidate was best suited to defeat Donald Trump and send a Democratic majority to the Senate, Sanders would be the nominee by acclamation. He and Biden are the only Democrats that polls show beating Trump. I think it's still very clear to voters and to the establishment sheepdoggers that Elizabeth Warren would have no chance at all of beating Trump. And they still are putting her forward, and we're going to explain why in a minute here. Biden is melting like the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz and will soon be nothing more than a puddle of gaffes, lies, and smirks on the pavement of history. Warren wants to convince the party's gatekeepers that despite her numerous plans to curb corporate power and her recent "I'm with Bernie on Medicare for All" declaration, she can be trusted to put the party's cohesion first. In this other article, what Elizabeth Warren is quietly telling Democratic insiders with phone calls, texts, and handwritten notes. This is the New York Times article. You can see that she is talking to the key people that need to be reassured inside the DNC establishment that she is not going to mount a rebellion mostly against austerity. She's not going to return the wealth that has been siphoned up to the corporate oligarchs. She's not going to return that wealth to the labor class. That's the big issue. And all these labor unions have been endorsing her recently, and it's the same kind of betrayal that happened with Hillary Clinton. People in these unions, leading these unions, absolutely should know that Hillary Clinton is not going to help their cause, and they absolutely should know that Elizabeth Warren also is not going to. So what you see with the union leadership in the bigger unions is that they're bought and paid for. They're part of the machinery, and it's disgusting. That's one of the most disgusting elements, is that leaders of labor unions are coming out for people like Elizabeth Warren. So this whole article the whole point is how each person has been courted, how she's been wooing this guy. He said, the outreach is not just an effort to avoid the confrontational approach Mr. Sanders took in 2016 when he inveighed against party insiders and the committee itself, which he correctly believed was favoring Hillary Clinton. Ms. Warren is also trying to allay concerns among Democrats that as a progressive candidate proposing sweeping change, she may not have enough mainstream appeal to compete with President Trump in the general election. What this is saying is she's already trying to pivot. She's doing this pivot between the establishment and the people that would support Bernie Sanders. The other White House contenders are, to be fair, wooing party officials also. But the more establishment-aligned candidates, like Vice President Biden and Senator Kamala Harris of California, do not face the same questions about their visions for party politics. Interviews with about 24 Democrats who have been in contact, 24 insiders who have been in contact with Ms. Warren reveal that her style of courtship has been unusually determined. This guy is Troy Price, chairman of Iowa's Democratic Party, said Ms. Warren called him the day he was reelected to his post last year, immediately after the midterm elections and on the day she entered the race. All of the sudden, the cell phone is ringing and it's her, not a staffer, added J. David Cox, the president of the American Federation of Government Employees. She's calling union leaders. She's got them on speed dial. The most aggressive of the Democratic contenders in pursuing him. And it goes on. This article talks about how she's wooing these evil people. If you know the territory, you go down this list. It's a who's who of yucky, capitalistic, opportunistic DNC party insiders. So going on in this first article, I have little doubt that Warren, who is a Republican until middle age, is capable of jettisoning Sanders and much of her own campaign promises to get party honcho's nod for the nomination. That's the pivot. It doesn't usually have to start so soon in the contest, but she's already pivoting like crazy. But despite the Democratic Party's institutional interest in winning elections, it remains a bought and paid for instrument of the corporate ruling class, whose pocketbooks are paramount. The Lords of Capital would rather the Democrats lose yet again to the unpredictable Trump than win with Sanders and any other candidate that would seriously challenge the prevailing order, endless austerity, and war. And they go together. To pay for the war machine, we have to keep the people working hard and sending all of their gains up the ladder, up the chain, to Halliburton, to Raytheon, to Boeing, and so forth. And not to mention Monsanto, big pharma, big prison military, big everything, all the forces of evil that Bernie Sanders is fighting. Not only do the rulers have no other vision for the future, but they have done fantastically well under perpetual austerity and global warfare, having added nearly 200 billionaires to the ranks just since 2012. That's their agenda. And so we said earlier, it isn't necessarily to defeat Trump, it's mostly to defeat Bernie. The whole point of the DNC insiders is to defeat Bernie. Now, the rank and file Democrats still think it's about defeating Trump, but they should wake up. They should realize if you really want to defeat Trump, then you should choose a candidate who's a populist, who can get all the poor and poorly educated, all the young, all the new voters that are coming in to vote for Bernie. But if the whole point of your endeavor is to preserve capitalism and to keep sending the money up to keep people in debt so that you can profit off of their debt, especially student loan debt, then you don't. The existential threat is not Donald Trump, not by any means. The existential threat is Bernie Sanders. This is what Bernie says. This is an older article. This is from 2015. But this really lays out what Bernie has been committed for years and years to do. The issue of wealth and income inequality is the great moral issue of our time. It is the great economic issue of our time. It is the great political issue of the time, and we are going to address it. Bernie is ready to take down the forces that have kept the American labor class living in austerity. This is not about Bernie Sanders. Bernie is not a careerist, but all the people that the DNC would run against him, whether they're sneaky like Elizabeth Warren, or whether they're blatant corporatists like Joe Biden, we're not going to get where we need to go unless we go Bernie's way. So this is happening fast. This is happening faster than I thought. This is a clarion call. We have to see what the insiders are doing with regard to Elizabeth Warren. Unlike Bernie, who is not for sale, Elizabeth is courting all the people, all the wrong people, that prove without any doubt that she is for sale. And we need to nip this in the bud. What's going to happen is we're going to end up with the second ballot at the National Convention, and the party insiders, who are absolutely indebted to big money, they'll wade in and they'll give it to Elizabeth. They don't care about Joe anymore. They don't care about Kamala, thanks to Tulsi. They don't care about Buttigieg or Beto. They had them up there just to confuse things. And if any, it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall. If any of them had stuck, then they would have gone with them. But it looks like Elizabeth is the one who's going to come out on top, and she's the anointed one, and she's Hillary again. And everything we've done so far, Bernie or bust in particular, to disrupt that anointing, it's going to be all hands on deck. We have to all work together to make sure that this doesn't happen again with the same result that happened last time. All right, that's all I got for today. Keep on burning.